Welcome to the Picolino Extruder.
Today I'm going to show you the latest progress of my Picolino Extruder. Stay tuned to the end where we do the unboxing of this envelope. Few major changes. Let me just go over the changes. You haven't really seen the insides of the Picolino yet, so this is a good opportunity. The previous version of Picolino was using a single part internal gear with external teeth to drive. So that was the design on version 2. And really quickly, I've noticed that these teeth are destroying my motor pinion. So that was a really big Achilles heel to this design. To solve that problem, I went back to the drawing board and made a compound gear. So now we have still the same 51 tooth internal gear, but the drive gear is now smaller and it's supported by a ball bearing. So this whole thing is now much more constrained. This gear assembly that simply presses on here like so, and this is the latest iteration. So I don't know if I can bring that in closer. Maybe it's not going to focus well. Let's see. So that is the new Picolino drive system. The little ball bearing for the Ninja Flex and other ultra flexible filaments is still here, but I've also gone ahead and made a adjustable pressure bearing here, so this can slide in and out as necessary with a single set screw. So this part of the housing has two set screws. One set screw is used specifically for adjusting the pretension. Again, much like on the original magnetic IDEX, you set it and forget it. This is not something you need to adjust ever after the first few prints. And then this part also gets a set screw. There are two different length threaded inserts. I'm able to capture this Dragon heat break and make it adjustable. So I've got a catch here for the heatsink and a tiny little pressure plate, pressure block that allows me to fully constrain this assembly. And with just a tiny little release, I have about a millimeter, a little over a millimeter of Z adjustment. So that makes the IDEX setup much simpler. Here we will have this air handler, if you will. Actually, it's just a receiver with two inputs and two outputs. So basically, this air gets delivered directly to the heatsink, and well, let's follow the air path through this assembly. So I've got air coming in and exiting right through here. Also, it will spill over and cool my gear and exhaust right over the extruder motor. So that's the construction here. Really simple. I do have heat set inserts that will go in here, and that'll go right onto the magnetic IDEX carriage. So the carriage is still fully magnetic. It has the strike for the push-push latch. And this tiny piece will allow me to use this on the standard magnetic IDEX. This piece is the flag for the optical end stop, so that gets super glued like so. Again, just really simple. Let's assemble this really quickly and do a dry run with some filaments. So for this, I need to press in some threaded inserts, and then we need to glue the assembly together. The parts that are glued together will stay permanently attached. So this is just for printability, because I'm printing that flat on this surface, and then I'm printing this exhaust duct / mount on that surface. I'm able to preset this in with just brute force. There's a 4mm shoulder on this set screw that lets me just kind of start this. And now I have them preset. I have my heatsink here, and so let's just pop them in one at a time and flatten it with a good heatsink. And then I have a third heat set insert that goes in here, and we'll do the same thing with this guy. And flatten flatten it against a good aluminum surface so it can actually kind of seal it on the inside. Now you can see here I do need to remove that excess that it pushed out. I will use a knife just to clear that portion there. And then I mentioned already these two that I already did off camera. Another step that I need to do, I have a little ridge here that I need to index against. So I'm gonna put a file here and just kind of hit that surface, prepare it for gluing. I want that to be a sharp without any radius in there. Let me get my trusty super glue. You can use the gel type, but I prefer the liquid one. So that seems to work well. We need to glue it to this surface. I will remove my dragon heat break like so. This part gets glued in here, and then I have a screw that will reinforce that connection. So this screw connection goes straight to the stepper motor. And it's amazing how strong super glue is on ABS parts. It's more than enough glue. And this is our edge, so I want to be mindful and careful how it gets glued on. I want this to be flat, and we'll just secure it with the screw right now just to make sure our alignment is good, and we got some pressure while the glue is setting up. It's a very light thread right now, but it's able to catch and hold that. So I've got a good connection here, and this is following the radius here. So that's my glue up for this part. And we can set this aside now and do the same thing on this part. And there may be a little bit of an elephant's foot. I don't really feel it, but I'm gonna hit this with a file again. Just kind of make sure that this part is as flat as possible to increase my surface area. I did not make any special provisions for this part here as far as alignment features. So for now, I'm going to just do this freehand. The best way I found to glue these types of things is to assist with a piece of tape. We'll just tape these parts together. This is kind of a critical glue connection because the entire extruder is basically held by the screws that go in here. So we just go in, fold this and lock it in place, press it down, just hold it for a few seconds. This bond will become stronger than the layer bond between layers. So gluing parts like this, I find works really well. So we'll set this aside for a second and continue on the rest. I believe I have everything else is ready. So this part is also a two-piece assembly with two tiny bearings, and I do have a bead of glue that went in on that little lip. So this is an integral assembly. Rolls really nicely. Let's go ahead and peel some of this tape over. And maybe ready for handling. Now that this is all setting up, let's install the bearings here. And then on the other side, we install the heat break. Again, that's all just kind of connects here. I'll do a very light connection, so just basic friction. This screw I'll back out. I don't need it anymore for now. The glue is doing its job. Notice how beautiful these tubes are printed. They were printed together with the carriage. And so, by the way, this will just sit like so in here. There was enough time for the layers to cool without any additional part cooling. So this is completely in an enclosed chamber at about 50 C or so, 47 to 50 C, and the part just comes out beautiful without any additional cooling and without any special slowing down of the print. Let's pop this all together like so. This is spinning freely, and let's do a quick test of our filament. So we'll put that in. You see how it's driving, and the initial setting for my pressure here, the way I just initially guessed that I need to do it, is to make sure I can back drive this gear. Right now it's slipping, so I'm going to just increase the pressure ever so slightly to make sure that I'm back driving the gear perfectly. When I feel some good resistance, and again, this takes very little effort. The drive gear is extremely grippy, so I'm not actually deforming the filament very much. It's leaving tiny little marks that are hard to see under a microscope. I'll have to show you at some point later. The other part of this change and why the gear ratio is so much improved now is that I'm using the 8-tooth motor pinion. That initially scared me off because when I looked at the color, it looks like a brass gear, but in fact it is a stainless steel, same material as the 10-tooth one. So that gave me some more confidence saying, yeah, that's perfectly fine to use for this type of design. So now you can see I'm driving the motor pinion, and that's just absolutely effortless. So let's put some screws in. To give you an idea, this is about a 20mm screw. The hole is slightly, it's nominal basically, and it comes in a little tight so that it's actually self-centering really well in the hole, but it also makes me work extra hard to get this to seat fully. Just snug it up. So this sub-assembly is all done. The part cooling duct goes in like so. There's a clearance for the carriage, so that goes right through the carriage. It's locking in, and I've got the part cooling duct, and then there's 3 holes here that's mounted right onto the carriage. So you just put this through and bolt it onto the carriage, and that locks everything else in place. So that's 3 more screws. So mechanically speaking, there's 2 screws to assemble the extruder or tool head, and 3 screws to mount it onto the carriage. And that's our assembly. This motor gets cooled in that exhaust channel here, so it's almost biblical where the air creates this cool column over the motor. So it's a cool air curtain in a sense, and the few watts that we have to extract with our cooling system doesn't really change the overall temperature of the chamber, because that's got a lot more power, 10 times more power or more, to heat up the chamber and the heated bed. I really like that I've got remote cooling for both the hot end, the heat sink here on the hot end, the motor, and also the gear here. So everything will remain close to room temperature even inside an enclosure. The most interesting part that I alluded to earlier, the unboxing or unenveloping. So the killer feature of this extruder is, of course, drum roll please. Have you ever seen unenveloping before of your own product? So everything in this build was made possible by the magnetic IDEX tool head and the legacy of the Bondtech BMG gears. So I'm super excited to announce that the extruder is absolutely shippable in an envelope. So this is essentially the whole extruder. You just pop these things out, these gears out, install them into your gear, print the extruder. This is the old version, so I'll need to create drawings for it, but in my opinion, the killer feature is that this extruder can really be shipped worldwide in an envelope. One last comment that I forgot to mention was that because this gear is so fine, I had to print this with a smaller 0.3 millimeter nozzle, and that caused a few issues. Switching it to the 0.3 nozzle, a lot of times scratching my head, printing, reprinting parts, until I remembered that I have the cauliflower. I scaled it down 75%, and that let me adjust my shrink rates and everything for the parts to fit so beautifully in this assembly that I didn't have to do any filing or post-processing or anything, and it just worked beautifully. So, and the same profile, so the black parts are printed on tool 0 with 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and the yellow parts are all printed on T1 with 0.3 millimeter nozzle, and I think it came out just perfect. Thank you, Adam from Vector 3D, for creating this part and making it really easy to adjust my shrink rate for these ABS parts. Overall, I'm super happy. I will assemble this off camera into the printer, calibrate. This is going to be functionally a direct replacement or direct drop-in replacement for the magnetic IDEX tool heads. So I will keep tool 1 as original magnetic IDEX, and tool 0 will be the Picolino. It's printing relatively decent, benchy at average print speeds, nothing crazy here. The new modified cooling duct seems to be doing well. The chimney looks beautiful. Let's see how quick it can finish that. Let's take a look. Take a look at this little benchy. I got some ringing. The cooling is perfect. I didn't do any vibration or any input shaper yet on this. The first layer was a little ugly. I didn't have any priming. It just went right from the bib to start the print, and I'm not sure what happened here on that layer 3 or whatever that is. But overall, I gotta work things out a little bit. A relatively decent benchy. Like I said, the cooling I'm very happy with. I think that's spot on. So one CPAP blower does the cooling for the tool head, for the hot end, for the stepper motor. The stepper motor is cool enough to touch, maybe in the upper 20s, maybe 27C, very low temperature. And then the second tube is for the part cooling, and that is modulated by the pinch valve here. So very simple setup and quite decent results. We'll keep pushing things, we'll keep learning and improving, but overall I'm pretty happy.
Dance till the pole, let yourself go. On the sonic journey, we won't move slow. The stars are shining, time stands still. Lost in the beat where the love fulfilled. When the music fades, when the night is done, I'm sure.
Huge thank you to all my supporters for helping make this a reality. Stay tuned for more magnetic IDEX and Picolino Extruder videos.